A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships is my favourite 1975 album.
It is also my favourite.
Well, here's the thing, right? And this is an interesting point to make.
Disgusting ending to this podcast we've got that we agree on something.
So I don't know if you found this, right? But I don't know if it's necessarily my favourite album. I don't know if I could pick a favourite album. I just know it's not Notes. But but like there's a difference between my favourite album and the best album. Do I think this has the best songs on it? No. Is it the best album overall? 100%.
Yeah.
I think as a full thing, it just works so well. It's all got before when I was talking about like an aesthetic and a sonic identity and all this, it's nailed that to a T. It's all beautifully textured and consistent, and there's all this like natural like live instrumentation and fucking room sound and people rustling and everything's got a bit of hiss on it. And I love that about it, you know what I mean? And it took me a while to realise that about this album, because at first, again, wasn't sold. Yeah. I was like, it's good, but it's a very different kind of 1975 to the first two albums, to what we're used to.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I can see that.
And there's only really one sort of 1975-y, 80s-ish song on this album. It's Not Living. But as time's gone by, the more I've listened to it and realised how beautiful it is sonically, I think I've appreciated the fact that, and maybe that's why I think this is the best album, because it's their most original album. You know what I mean? It doesn't do the Michael Jackson, Pete Gabriel influenced big pop stuff that they came out doing and then carried over to the second album.
Yeah.
It does something completely different that is, because even on Notes, like you can hear where they're going for like Burial inspired like UK garage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like them doing their version of this sound. Whereas on A Brief Inquiry, I feel like they're just doing them.
Yeah, I feel like on Notes, some songs are like, oh, I've always liked this sort of music, we've always wanted to do this sort of song, so fuck it, we'll put it on the album, sort of thing. But you know, if that's what they want to do for the end of an era, show they've got going on,
I'm not against it.
They may as well.
But I just think it's something to be praised about A Brief Inquiry, that they, and you know, like you can hear some influence, like you can hear like the more jazz influence on stuff like Mine and songs like that, but I don't know, I'd struggle to pinpoint exactly where it's come from, other than just a place of like personal.
What, for this album?
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting like experiment almost, because like we came into this episode knowing that you know a lot more like about the 1975 in general, and I'm sort of like an average listener who has just found a tendency of liking them like towards the end of this, you know, my time listening to them.
Yeah.
And this is the album I know the least about.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember the singles coming out, and I remember like when the album was released and stuff, but it's just nothing I was interested in. Like, I was more interested in the second one, the fourth one. Yeah. And then I could really like relate to the first one when I went back and listened to it, and this was just kind of there. So I'm very shocked to have it as my number one.
Why is it your number one? Because I'm also very shocked for you to have it as your number one.
Again, like with the I've put on my thoughts section of my notes, if you take 4 songs out, it'd be goated. And them songs are Mine, Heads and Bodies, Love Theme, and How to Draw. How to Draw can fuck off.
Bro, nah.
That's a point. That song pisses me off.
That's a beautiful song.
Is it fuck like it goes ham in the second half, and even that part.
That's cool. That's mad.
That's not cool, and it's not mad.
I would have thought. I don't know. I would have thought you would have taken out the more like acoustic-y ones. So I get what you're saying about Mine and Heads and Bodies.
Yeah, but like, and then if you took them 4 out, like I said, it'd be goated, because the rest of the songs I've got like quite high on my rating scale. Like, this has got the highest intro 1975 song out of all of the albums. Okay. Yeah,
that's interesting, because when it first
it makes sense for the album like this track.
It does, yeah. Well, and I guess that's one thing that should be credited as well, that maybe slips a tiny bit on Notes, but I get what they were trying to do with the whole Greta Thunberg thing, is like, it's sick how every 1975 song at the start of each album is like a reflection of the aesthetic of the album, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, again, like with Notes, it was a very sign of the times 1975 thing to do. Yeah. Like when you look at it as like a pathway, like we mentioned a minute ago, like how this goes into more like, you know, human sort of lifestyle stuff than just like feelings and young girls and shit. Like, it makes sense that happened on the 4th one. Yeah. As much as, you know, I'm not going to listen to it anyway. But talking about this album, I've got the best songs on this one. Give Yourself a Try.
maybe controversial. I like it.
I like, on a production note, how like that little guitar riff that like loops the whole thing.
Yeah.
He talks about like how he put a phaser on it or something.
Yeah.
But that every time you listen to the loop, it's like a different sound.
They were like, well, because as well, I think what it is, and this is to get a little bit nerdy, but it's when you distort something to a certain degree, the harmonics that the distortion produces change over time. You know what I mean? So it doesn't become boring and repetitive.
Yeah. Love If We Made It.
Of course. You can't not. Because the thing is, I think that was maybe the second song that we heard from that album. And Give Yourself a Try, I was kind of like, okay. I mean, it's fine. You know what I mean? And they always do this with the first singles from like, they did it with Love Me, where I was a bit like, okay. And then they did it with Give Yourself a Try. I was like, okay, it's a bit weird. And then People, for the last album, they always go with like a strange first single that's always at the top of the album.
Yeah.
But when I heard Love It If We Made It, I was like, oh, okay, we're in. Now, when it hits like the groovy bit, you know, when like it stops being just the
I get you, towards the end of the song.
Yeah.
That's my most listened to song off the album, probably. Love If We Made It. And then I used to hate Two Time.
Yeah,
Just
I
didn't
can see
do
it.
it for
I can
me.
see it.
And now I feel like I appreciate the instrumental a lot. Like it is a little funky dance vibe. I just think the lyrics are a bit shite.
Yeah. Well, that it goes back to what we were saying before. This is maybe one of the only times, maybe, I don't know, where it was definitely the first time where they'd done a pop sound and basic pop lyrics. And I was kind of like, I can vibe to Two Time, don't get me wrong, like you almost can't, you can't hate it because it's so pop and it's so like, it's like earwormy, for me anyway, but like, I don't know, I was kind of like, come on lad, you can do better than this.
The chorus is what pulls it out for me, like I can listen up to there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, which is backwards in like the chorus is meant to be the hook and what pulls me in.
Yeah.
I've got this album as ending on a very high note as well, because your tracks it ends on.
Well, weird thing, right? So, and this doesn't make, I don't know why it does this, because I thought when that album came out and it ends with I Always Want to Die Sometimes, one of my favourite songs.
Yep.
And it ends, and then there's like a moment of silence, and then there's these weird little strings that come in. You notice that? For like 10, 15 seconds, it sounds like some out of Star Trek or something. And I thought, oh, well, maybe this is like, because I knew that they were doing the whole 2 albums as one era thing and the whole Music for Cars era.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe this is like going to make sense when the next album comes out. You know what I mean? Maybe it'll lead on to this.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't. And it almost, I love that song. I love I Always Want to Die Sometimes. But it like, it gets to the end and I want it to end.
Yeah.
I don't need a little stop and then a little fucking something else that doesn't lead anywhere, you know what I mean? But yeah, it does have some of my favourite songs, that being one of them, Love It If We Made It being one of them. I even love like the sort of plinky plonky piano stuff that like runs in the back of a lot of the songs in the album. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
It's like, I love how that's like a common theme throughout the whole thing, you know what I mean? And it adds this thing that I was on about again with like